Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our special webinar around the topic of redundancy and what we can offer in a way of advice to those of you who are out there struggling with life at the moment. We know it's not easy. I'm joined by a great panel of guys. I'll just introduce you to them very briefly, as I'm sure there's quite a few of you who don't know them. Jim Harris. Jim, you're very welcome. He's had a sparkling career in financial services and estate agency, including regional director at a countrywide brand in the Midlands. Jim then went to Purple Bricks as training director, and I think it was 2016, around about then. And he has now just joined forces with Sean Newman at Newman Property Services, where they have got very, very exciting times ahead. Jim, thanks for joining us today. Ian Macbeth. Ian was personal trainer before starting in the property sector back in 2003, where he quickly progressed through the ranks of prospect estate agents. He was then abruptly made redundant in 2019, where he was residential sales director. Ian took stock, decided that he wanted to be in control of his own destiny, started his own consultancy, and just recently has just launched Avocado Property Berkshire. And he's very, very excited. He's got 3 or 4 new associates working with him, and the future is very, very bright, I'm sure. Stephen Brown. Stephen, who's a good friend of mine, was an investment negotiator before joining North London estate agents Green & Co. back in 1993, many moons ago. Stephen was the training and development director eventually before his departure in 2012. Since then, he's concentrated on his own business, training and consultancy business. He's also director of Agency Mentors, and he is one of the co-presenters of the Estate Agents podcast, which is very, 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 very successful. Been doing a lot of lunchtime learning videos and webinars as well with people, which has been really interesting. Stephen was awarded EA Masters Best Small Supplier in 2019. But believe me, he is larger than life. Small is definitely not appropriate. Pete Lawrence. Pete's the owner of Lawrence Rand estate agents in Northwest London and director of Fine & Country. Peter founded LR in 2008, operates a fantastic business. Pete, I think by his own admissions, comes from humble beginnings, and he's got a great story which I'm going to ask him to share with us shortly. And finally, not last but not least, Andy Mead, my younger brother. Andy's worked in agency since the late 80s, early 90s, 1990 I think it was, when he was part of the machine known as Romans. Working alongside the likes of Peter Knight, Ian White, obviously picked up an awful lot of experience with those guys, was with Romans for 20 years. He's since then enjoyed roles with a number of the big developers, and abruptly 6 months ago, again, was made redundant. So in a really good position to share those emotions, what he went through. Andy's also been inspirational in us setting this up. It was his idea that we did this. So we're here to help, guys. We want to share, our experiences with you, and obviously those of you who are out there, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. So down to business. Ian, if I can start with you. You recently published a video on social media about, the effects of about the effects that being made redundant had on you from prospects. I found that really, really interesting. I just wondered, for those out there that didn't actually see that, would you mind sort of just sharing how that was for you at the time, what you went through, and how you dealt with that whole situation?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the intro music as well, Steve.
That's okay, mate.
Yeah, so I guess for me, it was, I put the video on LinkedIn and Facebook just because it's about 12 months ago that I actually got made redundant, and time flies, and I didn't realise it was quite as long as that. But yeah, for anyone that's kind of going through it at the moment, what I experienced was, I'd been there 17 years, so I've been there since I was 19, and you get a mixed level of emotions. And for me, what I found over that weekend when I found it was going to happen, I kind of went through you go for a bit of shock, I guess. It kind of hits you in the face, and then you get, I guess, a bit upset. You get a bit emotional. You get sort of a bit kind of scared and sort of a bit vulnerable, you kind of feel. Then as you kind of digest it, for me, what I found, I got quite frustrated. I got quite angry. I felt it was a bit unjust, and you just sort of get a bit kind of masculine and a bit kind of, right, it's got to be someone else's fault. And that was kind of the quick 2 different stages of emotions I went through. And then I guess for me, I'm someone that likes to reflect on things, and I kind of took it away, and I digest things quite quickly myself. And I just thought, do you know what? This could be the best thing that ever happens to me. It could be the push in the direction that I needed to go to do something completely different. So after going through those two different levels of emotions, when I actually sat down and probably sort of reflected on my own worth, that's when I found that after that, it was kind of just looking forward rather than looking back. And I guess different people go through different timelines of how long it takes them to get to that. But my social post was just to say, just remember that every experience you've gone through, every skill that you've learned is what makes you individual. Everyone is very individual. And because we're all so individual with our own skills and our own experiences, that's where our value sits. So whether you've been made redundant or you feel you're going to be made redundant, you're an individual person, and that's what makes you unique, and that's what makes you individually valuable. So don't be too frustrated or emotional for too long, because you are unique, and as a result, you will always have a unique opportunity that you can look forward to. And that's kind of what I created for myself.
Sure. Jim, you're nodding. What are your thoughts on what Ian's just said?
Yeah, I think it's. I think you've articulated that fantastic, Ian. The emotions that you go through, the shock, the sadness, the anger, the unjust. But the thing that resonated with me, that what you've just said most, is, when I went through that process myself at the end of sort of nearly 4 years with Purple Bricks, find myself being made redundant, was, that feeling of self-worth, of why me and all the rest of it. And somebody gave me a little saying, and I want to share it with you, is it says, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. And discovering your worth and finding out who you are as a person and what value you can add to other people. I think that was what Ian, reiterate what Ian said. A big turning point for me was when actually I saw that I had value to add, and I started to then apply myself in looking where I can add that value. So that was why I was nodding so emphatically, because self-worth for me was the biggest thing that it affected me, knowing who I was as a person, what I stood for. So that's why I was very emphatic about that. Okay.
Andy, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just going on what Ian and Jim both said. I think from my perspective, you go through all the, as Ian says, the disbelief, the hurt. But for me, walking out the door the last minute was my own reflections on myself, thinking, am I really as good as I thought I was? And that was the most, I suppose, the difficult part of the redundancy. It was the fact that they didn't want me. That's fine, I get that. But you then start to question your own self-belief. And that was the hardest thing for me, was trying to fathom why it was me and not somebody else. And maybe I wasn't as good, or I wasn't as good as I thought I was myself. And then, but at the end of the day, you go away. What happens. And as the guys have alluded to, I've come out of that a much better person. And just by taking a little bit of stock of myself, looking back at what's gone right, what hasn't gone right, and just because somebody doesn't believe you're the right person for them doesn't mean you're not the right person for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spot on.
No,
I think a lot of it's with mindset and your belief. And sometimes things do happen for a reason, sadly. And what it's done is, if you take Ian as an example, it's given Ian a fantastic opportunity to set up a thriving business that's going to be a massive success. Same with Andy, same with Jim, and I know Pete's got the most amazing story to tell. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
But it's what you do, and for me, actually, it's a discovery. So it may not be. I think language is really important, and everything happens for a reason, and everything's a learning and a discovery, and it's what you do with it. So if you look at all the best people, best business people out there, how many of them have failed, with their businesses? How many times did Edison try and sort out the light bulb before it worked? So it's having that belief that things are going to be better. However, it's really, really tough when it happens to you, and when it's not expected. you know, it is a shock. You know, I remember, God, going back, I got made redundant in about 1989. And it was just the day before my 2-year period was finished. So before then, they would have to start paying me money. And I was in work at 7 o'clock in the morning because I was studying in the boardroom to become a chartered surveyor. And I remember my boss coming in and saying, "Right, got to let you go." And that was it. And at the time, I was either overqualified to be an estate agent or underqualified to be a chartered surveyor. You know, my dad was also in hospital at the time, and it was just incredibly challenging. And I know you talk about self-worth. When I eventually got the role at Green & Co, I had zero confidence whatsoever. You know, I remember answering the phone and to the MD's wife, and the MD's wife saying to him, "Who the hell have you employed? Why have you employed him?" You know, I was literally down in the dumps. And then hopefully with the right support network and the right care around you, you know, your confidence does come up.
What do you, Stephen? I mean, I 100% agree with everything you've just said, but there are a lot of people out there, I think, who are probably not as mentally resilient as we now are, because we've got, you know, we've got experience under our belt. Pete, go on.
Find yourself a good mentor. You know, there's a lot of people out there that mentally struggle. You know, I've mentally struggled throughout the years, and there's no fuss about that, and I'm proud to say that, because I'm human. And I think the first thing that you need to do is to find the right mentor. You know, Stephen being one of them, and many other people in this industry that are out there. Yeah, it's, you know, being business owners, and you know, as you all know, everyone's around, and it's a lonely world on your own. You know, it's a hell of a lonely world on your own. And I think that, you know, regardless of what level you are, whether you're just coming into the industry or you're a CEO of one of the biggest brands in the UK, you need someone to turn to. And I think that's the first thing that I would say.
Okay, but I'm 100%. What about those people out there that are, you know, obviously, you know, a lot younger than us? I don't put you in our bracket here, or in my bracket, should I say? But those, you know, mid-20s, maybe experiencing this for the first time, have not got massive life experiences. Andy?
Don't be afraid to talk to somebody. Just do not be afraid to just say to somebody, "This has just happened. I'm not feeling great. What would you do?" Just don't be afraid to whether pick up the phone, or whether you Skype somebody, or you message somebody, or you poke somebody on Facebook, whatever it is you do. It is, you know, don't be afraid. I mean, Steve, you know me as well as anybody else. And I am quite a confident character. But for the first week that I came out of where I was made redundant, I wasn't in a good place. But my exterior, I didn't let on that I was scared. Yeah. You know, I've got a family, I've got a mortgage. COVID was just the service of COVID was just breaking out, and I was scared. But I didn't want to give that persona to anybody else, because I'm big, I'm 6'4", I'm Andy Mead, I'm 17.5 stone. You know, I'm a big burly man. Yeah. But it's only when I started talking to people then I realised, you know what, it isn't that bad. No. And you know, I've started doing my own thing now with Ian, and the comments I got as soon as I posted it on LinkedIn from connections that I haven't spoken to for many, many years was just incredible, and it lifted me tenfold. Yeah. And it just goes to show the power of worth and what people actually believe you are, and giving that self-belief back to you. And that's what you need to do, is just don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. And to be fair, I remember speaking to you just when it happened, and it was, you know, I could tell. I think, you know, it's, you know, when your family, you can sort of tell, despite the robust sort of exterior and outward sort of persona and that. But listen, it's difficult. Stephen, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, look, I think what I realised during COVID, there's a lot of people that are suffering. So, you know, I'd be doing webinars, and I'd say to people, right, just send me an email with one thing that you've taken away. And they sent me that, but they actually sent me their life story. and they just wanted somebody to speak to. And I think that's what's really important. And, you know, I've become a founder member of Agents Together, and there's free mentoring, either speedy full mentorship or speedy mentors. So if people want to talk, you know, there's 80 mentors out there that, you know, and I know, Pete, you've done some mentoring with the people, which I'm really grateful. There's 80 mentors in the business and actually out of agency who were there giving them time for nothing because they want to help and give back. And, you know, that's a resource. So I know this morning we've had 10 new mentees join the program. You know, and there's some exceptional people on there that really want to help. They're giving their time up for nothing. So for me, there are a lot of people out there that are suffering. You know, please, please, please don't suffer in silence. There's a lot of help out there where people care, you know, and want to help. And I know, you know, and you're right, and going back, it's a long, long time. When I first started work, I had a day off, and at 11 o'clock in the morning, I had a phone call, and it's just like, do you know this person? I go, yeah, that's my granddad. Well, he's fallen over, and okay, fine. Can you go and get him? So yeah, so I went out of my pajamas, went and got him, and what I didn't realise was he had a heart attack. So took him back to his house flat, which wasn't far, and then called an ambulance, and actually I could have taken him to the hospital. But long and short, I saw him die 3 times and be resuscitated. They brought him home, and then I found him on Boxing Day. So I opened his door to see how he was, and he was slumped in a chair. I never shared that with anybody. I didn't talk to anybody. And then literally about a year later, I was like in bits, and it all came out. And I think now there's so many people that you can have a conversation that are really willing to help you. I think, you know, what COVID has done is it's brought people together that they want to help, and they want to make a difference. So, you know, anybody who's watching this, please, you know, reach out to Agents Together, you know, or, you know, whether it's however you're feeling, you know, there is so much help. But just talk to somebody. It makes such a difference, you know, rather than sitting it on your chest. Get it out. It makes a difference.
Sure. Okay, Pete, I'll come to you in a second. Jim, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think it's really important what you've just said about talking to people. For me, what happened as I came through a redundancy, it wasn't the actual effect of redundancy that I realised that it affected me in the biggest way. It was what had led up to that. It was going into work for a period of time with almost an anxiety and an anticipation, and maybe a bit of negative self-talk about my role in the company at that time. And as I came out of it, it was actually my wife, because like Andy said, you know, I'm a man. I'm the provider. You know, I've got a life to live. I've got a wife 20 years younger that I've got to provide a lifestyle for. And, you know, this was all the silly stuff that was going on in my head. But actually was just, none of it was actually important. But it took it was my wife to help me see who I really was as a person. And as a result of her helping me see who I had become behind this facade of Jim, the enthusiastic, motivational guy, was actually, I was diagnosed with depression in February. And that was something I find very hard to talk about even now. And I shared that with Steve, you know, because for me, that was harder to deal with than being made redundant, was accepting actually the human element of what I am, understanding where I'd become, and actually seeing myself through the eyes of, as it was, you know, my wife, and seeing what I'd become. And the two things combined together within that confined space of sort of 2 or 3 weeks was most probably the lowest point I've been into an awful long time. And Steve mentioned earlier about, you know, you've got to have a strong mindset, and you're absolutely right. But sometimes I can tell you there was days when literally I just lay in bed, didn't get out of bed, and found myself just inexplicably just crying over seemingly nothing. And what it evolved to was a bit of a spiral of self-pity and a bit of a spiral of self-reflection. And the key word there is self. What broke me out of that was two things. One is I went to speak to somebody because somebody gave me some advice that said, if you want true advice, always seek it from somebody who has no agenda or gain from giving you the advice, because then it'll be genuine. So I sought somebody out. And the second thing was, stop thinking about doing it for yourself and think of your purpose in life of doing it for others. And it was my wife that turned around to me quite firmly, I'll be honest with you, and said, I'd listen to you, I get you, I understand your pain, but never once have you said about the future you want to create for your children and why you want to get out of bed for your children's future. It's like you've given up even thinking or caring about them. And that for me was the hard reality. When I started to focus then on having a purpose in my life to fulfill the others that I cared for, a weight was lifted off my shoulders more than anything, both in terms of my mental state, but also then my ability to be very proactive in actually looking for the right job that suited me. So, you know, that for me, and this is a momentous time for me, I'll be honest with you, publicly declaring what I've been through, and it still chokes me now. I'm still getting better.
Now, fair play to you, Jim. Listen, you know, you phoned me, you know, a couple of months ago, and we had that conversation, and you know, that wasn't something I was going to bring up today, but it was a heartfelt conversation, and it really, really surprised me. I'll be honest with you. I didn't realise, I was not aware that that's what, you know, what you'd been going through. And I think it's, you know, it just goes to show you do have to communicate. You know, you've got to talk to people. And, you know, it's, you know, I was delighted when you said you'd come on here. Not that, you know, as I say, I was going to make that public today. I'm glad that you have, because I think it's probably the best thing you've done. But, you know, it's always lovely to hear stories of that. And it is about, it's, you know, self-worth, but also, you know, I've had my ups and downs in life. And to be fair, it's about, right, okay, how do you make things better? Where do I go from here? This is a new chapter. You know, you take responsibility for certain things, and you've got to move on. And you know, it's immense, mate. It's immense that you've come out with that today. Pete, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, well, first of all, Jim, amazing, mate. So well done. You know, it could be a dark place, and you know, so first of all, saying it in public is a big thing. You know, I obviously only said about my story in public only a few weeks ago, and been bombarded by the industry with amazing messages. And I think that as soon as you start releasing it, your weight does go wow, and you do feel amazing. And second of all, I think, you know, I don't want on my tombstone when I die, I wish I. Yeah. Just do it. You know, we all say, I wish I'd done this years ago, I wish I'd done this. Right, just get on and do it. And I think that, you know, all the stuff that's happened in COVID and people being made redundant and all that aspect of things, and I'm not trying to be horrible about this situation, none of it you can control. You cannot control any of it, so get it out your head. Right? The things you can control are being positive, have the right attitude, have the right mindset, and have a goal of what you want to achieve in life. You can achieve anything, absolutely anything. Yeah. So it is dark and it is tough, and like people have gone through them times. Jim, you know, fair play to you saying that. I'll tell you something now, mate. You'll come out, if not already, starting to fill in $1 million. Yeah. So this is the point of this webinar. Is about everybody's sharing. Everybody's here. You know, people might not want to go onto a mentor platform and talk to people, but you know, with all of us on here, no doubt any of us will take a LinkedIn message from somebody, we'll take a Facebook message from somebody, we'll do anything to help anybody out. And I think that's the more you give in life, and trust me, I know this from first hand, the more you give in life for nothing, the more amazing you feel.
Yeah.
And business is money and business and all that is way down the line. It has nothing to do with that.
Correct.
So, good stuff. Ian, before we move on, I wouldn't say move on, we're not really moving on, because I think it'd be more of the same sort of topics, because, but is there anything, did I see you put your hand up? Did you want to add anything before I move on to the next? Yeah, go on, sorry.
Yeah, Jim mentioned purpose, and the kind of thing for me with kind of talking to people and people that are struggling out there at the moment and people that I talk to, I can only talk for the way my mind works. I'm a logical thinking person. So when I was made redundant, it was all of a sudden I felt like I didn't have answers, and that was, I didn't have answers to the problem. And what I had to work through in my own mind is, what are the answers? And the way I found the answers was deciding exactly what most of the guys have said is, what do I want to do in the future? What do I want to do next? What am I passionate about? What do I enjoy doing? And I think part of the reflection process for a lot of people has to be, what do you want to do next? Rather than worrying about what's happened. You know, Pete said rightly so, you can't handle what happens around you. You can't deal with, it's not your fault, it's just happening. What you can do and what is your fault is if you don't act on what your gut says, how you feel and what you really want to do. So don't trick yourself into thinking, right, I have to just follow this path because that's what I know. You have to go sometimes off track because of what you want to do. And for me, it was about, you know, creating this model for me was about purpose. It was about what I really, truly wanted to do. And I think the way that I found the answers was to decide, this is what I want to do. This is the answer to my problem. And then I had to find the solutions. And I had to upskill quite heavily, because if you do want to do something different, typically you have to learn. And when you do get made redundant, you've got to think, right, what new skills do I need to learn? What do I have to do to get the answers to that problem, to get the solution? And for me, I had to teach myself loads of different skills. And as you learn stuff, you fill yourself with more confidence and you build the layers back up as you grow and you become a better person. And that was the process that made me get from a difficult time into a really positive time. And yeah, there was one thing as well that Pete said about a mentor. And I think Andy said about talking to people. When you do start talking to people, just reach out to people, just reach out to connections, but just be genuine. You know, don't try and sell yourself. Don't try and say this, that, and the other. Just talk, much like Jim's just done there, completely open, honest. And if the right people see the right things, then you're on for a win. You know, that's the way to go about it.
So, great. Thanks for that, Ian. Thanks for that. So just on that topic, and obviously Jim sort of like, you know, that was amazing. Andy, and what a lot of people don't know, what these guys probably don't know, obviously something that's very sort of personal from our point of view, at the tender age of 36, you had a heart attack, which nearly killed you. At the time you were working at Romans, I remember walking out the hospital with you after that.
Yeah, it was, the more I look back on it, the more I had exactly the same feelings as being made redundant. You know, the hurt, why me? And, you know, I was playing football 3 times a week. I was training 3 times a week. I was playing football at weekends. And it was literally after a game of football that I had a massive heart attack caused by a blood clot in the main artery. So it wasn't anything to do with illness. It was just like a complete shock. And that was on the Saturday afternoon. Saturday evening, I was rushed into hospital with a massive heart attack. Monday morning, I was lying in Frimley Park and had all the tubes and everything on me. And a nurse walked past and she recognised me as somebody who I'd sold her house. Surprisingly enough, she was quite keen to see me. And she sat on the end of the bed and she said, "How are you feeling?" And I was like, "Yeah, fine." She said, "Do you know what's happened to you?" I said, "Yeah, I've had a fairly major heart attack." She said, and I said, "Yeah, I've had a fairly major heart attack, and but I'm still here." And she said, "But how are you feeling?" I said, "I'm all right." She said, "You're not feeling emotional? You're not feeling anything?" I said, "No." I said, "Genuinely," and it was just the way that I was, you know, big. And I go back to I'm a bloke, you know, I've got these wires on me. And the next morning I woke up and I remember looking at my watch, and it was 6:30 in the morning. And I'm getting emotional talking about it now. I burst into tears. And I literally was so embarrassed. I had the pillow over my face and I was sobbing like a baby. And the curtain, pulled the curtain, and it was a nurse. And she said, just let it out. She said, it happens to everybody. It is just your emotion and your body telling you what's happened. There's no reason for it. There's absolutely no reason to be concerned about the way you're feeling at the moment. The fact that you're letting it out is the way forward. And that's the way of your body dealing with it. Yeah. And I think from that moment on, I've always looked at life completely differently. You know, I was always wanted to work 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day. And I still did that even after my heart attack. But my perspective changed on life. And but the more that I spoke to people, and, you know, that my family were great. The guys from the football team, I had to go up to London to have an operation. So I was in a hospital in London for 3 days. They all came up to see me in the hospital. And these were guys that were 35, 36 years old, out on the beer, drinking all the time, gave up their time to come and see me. And that meant an awful lot to me. And then when we drove, I mean, Steve, you came and picked me up, if I remember. And when we drove home, I remember that the closer I was getting to home, the more emotional I was getting. And that was all coming back. And, you know, you had all the balloons and everything with like heart-shaped balloons, just having a bit of banter and what have you. And in the end, I just said, can you just leave them in the car? I just want to go in, shut the door, see the wife and kids, and just get on with life.
Yeah. And it was emotional. Walking out of the hospital, I remember specifically, I said to you, are you all right? And you went, no, not really. And I think that was just that whole security sort of thing, you know, like walking out and, you know, and I remember you saying to me, you know, like in there, I know I'm totally okay. So, mate, I said, you just got to get your head around it. Out here, you'd be totally okay. If they wouldn't let you walk out of here if you didn't feel that way. My question was going to be, which I'll come back to in a minute, was about your work colleagues and the support that you got from them. But Jim, you just put your hand up.
Yeah, Andy, I think that's an incredible story. And again, you know, we do this, don't we, as human beings? We go into this protect mode of, you know, whether it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whatever it is you study. But actually, we've got to protect ourselves. But you go into this mode where you almost convince yourself that you are okay and that you're getting better, and put on a brave face and, you know, we've had a good day today, so we're all okay. I think for me, the best thing, one of the best things that I heard was, again, my wife, and I have to refer to her because she was my best friend, my counsellor, my mentor through all of this. And it's only now that I realised just how much sadness she went through watching me go through it. And what I thought during the time was her getting on at me at times and maybe just not quite believing in me enough, was just her sadness of seeing somebody that, you know, was. And her biggest sadness was that I just couldn't admit that I was ill. And
I think that's you. Sorry, Jim, I interrupted.
Yeah, and Andy, the biggest thing that you said was that, you know, you have to have time to recover. If you have a heart attack, everybody in the world accepts that you have to have time to recover. Ian, you said you're the type of person that reflects. I'm a very, very reflective person as well. Sometimes over-reflective, which causes anxiety, but that's a whole different thing. But for somebody to tell you when you've gone to a place where you've been made redundant, you're questioning your self-worth, you're questioning whether you can provide for your family, you can't even think about tomorrow, never mind what your life goals are, for somebody to actually say to you, it's okay to take time to recover. You've got to get better before you can start achieving things. With mental illness, accepting a recovery time is really, really difficult, I found.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, as you say, yeah, I think, Steve, you're going to ask about work and what have you. And I was working for Romans at the time, and it was, I was running the new home side with Kevin Ellis, and every man to a T, from Dale Norton to Peter Coles to Peter Kavanagh to Kevin to Ian White, all said to me, you ain't coming back until you are ready. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about anything. You just need to get yourself ready. I said, but guys, I've been signed off for 3 months. What if I want to come back? They said, you ain't coming back. You've got nothing to worry about from this side where we are here. And that in itself just released an awful lot of pressure. And, you know, those 5 guys that I will always be, I won't say indebted to them, but what they did for me at that time when I suppose I was at the lowest in terms of health, meant a hell of a lot. And it just goes to show, I mean, they didn't have to do an awful lot. You know, Dale, for whoever knows Dale Norton, he's not the most passionate person in the world. But for him to come round and see me, literally 4 days, 5 days after having the operation in London, meant the world. Peter Cav, you know, he's a godson to one of my children now. And it's just, they did great. But I can't speak highly enough of them. But it just goes to show you that if you treat people with respect, you will get an awful lot back from them, and vice versa. Yeah,
and exactly that, and that is true. And Stephen, I've been on a few training courses with you, and you use that many occasions. You know, you treat people how you like to be treated yourself. I think is very, very important. Just move on, Pete. I know you're on holiday, mate, so I don't want to keep you all day. But you shared with Stephen the other day a really, what I thought was quite an emotional story. A very surprising story from my point of view, because I've known you for 3 or 4 years, and like the other guys on this webinar, you're this bigger, larger than life, robust guy. Share your story from your childhood with these guys.
Yeah, so the easy way to start off is well, where should I start, I suppose? So didn't have the best upbringing, had to do majority of things myself, and you know, we were born into this world, aren't we? And none of us are born into the world that we perfectly want. So unfortunately, I've never met my father, and I don't even know my father's name. And in my birth certificate, there's actually a line through his name. So you never know, you might be watching it. I hope you're not my dad, Steve, but there we go.
Thanks very much, Pete.
So yeah, got heavily involved in football when I was very young, and I'm still heavily involved in it now. But I moved out of home when I was 11 years old. Unfortunately, you know, I'll go a bit more deeper in the conversation today, because the conversation I had with Stephen the other day didn't really touch on. So basically, my mother had me at a very young age, around about 16 years old, and I thought my gran was my mother. And then unfortunately, my gran passed away, and then things were going horribly wrong at home. So I just took the chance. I just basically went, well, I can control my life and I can do what I want. And I was very confident, as much as I am now. But as you say, inside it's something different, you know. So moved out of home when I was 11 years old, and then moved in with a guy called Mick, who took me in, part of the football club. I had my one of 5 jobs was cleaning out the changing rooms, cleaning the football kits, etc., etc. You know what you do: put the corner flags up, put the nets up. So I had that job, which gave me some income, and paper round, milk rounds, etc., etc. And basically, from working very hard and getting involved in that community, and to be blunt about it, these people playing football, if majority of people here are involved in the football world, they were mentors to me. I just didn't know it at that age. I just didn't know it. They were mentors to me. They had their own businesses. I would work in their businesses, jobs as incomes, and support me. I had to buy my own school uniform. I had to cycle to school, etc., etc. Later on in the years, and I don't want to go to school. That's another topic. But then ended up meeting my amazing wife, who I'm with now, 17 years old. Her mother and father-in-law have been truly amazing to me, and bought our first property at 19 years old. So I think that, it's been a very hard roller coaster for me. So opened Lawrence Rad in 2008, and look, you guys have all been in the property industry for that long, so you know what the market was like in 2008. 2009, won Best Newcomer in England, and now trading, we'll see where we are now, and I think up to about 15 awards, but I don't care about awards, but I know I should, but I've gone past that. It's about having a big goal, and I think when I moved, it's quite funny because one of my football managers had a property and lived in the house. And I used to work for him around his roof of his yards, and I used to sweep his yard when I was a kid, clean out the yard, and then got to know him further. Then got to know his son, who I'm still good friends with today. And sorry, it's Brody. And then basically from there, it's from that element of things is that he become a great, inspiration to what he's achieved in his life. And I said to him when I was, I think I must have been about 18 or 19, I said, one day I'll own your house. I'll buy your house. And it's I bought his house 4 years ago and I live in it now. So, for me, it's an element of I've got to have massive goals and big goals. 2028, I want my exit plan. I think the next recession will be 2031. The biggest recession, and that's via Sherlaws. If any of you know who Sherlaws are, Darren Sherlaws, a very good economist. Now, I want the option to sell, but my big goal is to carry on, and not as in the industry, but my main goal is to set up a school for underprivileged children, and I think that's one thing that's very close to my heart, and I get emotional talking about it as much as you guys talk about it now. It's extremely close to me, and you're not born into this world being a horrible person, and all over the news and all over the media you see these millennials of people, and they kill people and they stab people and they're drug sellers and all this sort of side of people. Yeah, there is some of them people, but that's not their fault. They just got involved in the wrong groups. And I think that this world needs something for children at that age. And they might not like school. I hated school. I'm dyslexic. I hated school. You gave me sports. I look like I do sports now, by the way. But you give me sports and anything related to sport, I'll do it. Right? But regarding school, I absolutely hated it because of dyslexic. Yeah. So I had to find another outcome. And my other outcome was how can I be good at what I do, and how can I drive forward? And I think it just goes back to the goals, goes back to the attitude, goes back to determination and disprofiling yourself. For any of you guys watching this, it'd be worth just going onto tonyrobbins.com/disc, DISC. It's a free disc profile on yourself. Steve, I think you know people that do disc profiles as well. Reach out to him. Understand, sometimes you look at yourself and you go, well, that's not me. That's not who I am. That's absolute bollocks. I'm not that sorry, I shouldn't swear, but that's not me. Do the profile, understand who you are, and then you look at it and you go, you know what, that is me. So for me, I'm a 97% red D, right? Which basically means I'm just a doer. I don't care if I make mistakes today, just make them quick and move on. I don't think about things too much. I'm too quick to jump 2-footed in. I know who I am. But by doing that, I know things are going to be great or they're going to be bad. There's no sitting on the fence. It's just all in or all out. And I think for me, that's really driven me forward. But there's been a lot of challenges. Everybody sees me and go, look what he's got. For example, now this is a brand new car. I'm on holiday with my children. It's been a bloody long, hard slog for 13 years of working just in Lawrence Rand, let alone leaving home earlier on. But having people around you, like you, Steve, like Stephen Brown, like there's a lot of good people in this industry. Just reach out. I ring you, Steve and Stephen Brown, a hell of a lot. Maybe it's not much I should, but this has come to my head. Sometimes Steve rings me and goes, Pete, thought about this, or all that sharing that's out there. That doesn't cost money, because everybody thinks this costs money or there's a catch to it, or why are these guys doing this for people in the industry? There's no catch. We just want to help.
Pete, can I ask, because you didn't have the benefit of all this, the personality profiling and that sort of thing, at an age of, even through your late teens, where did you get the grit and determination to get to where you've got to today? Where did that come from?
That's a good question, to be fair. I think the grit for me is that it's the sport. I always go back to football. Okay, I don't go to play football. I don't play football now, but I don't go to, when I did play football, to go to draw or to go to lose. I go to win. I only play football to win, and I want the people on that team, about 15 people on that team, to win like me. If they can't win like me, they can't be in my team. But that doesn't mean win by pissing people off. Yeah, that doesn't mean by pissing people off. But I think what come to me was that, you know, this is, if you go back to really a young age, I had the choice to make. And I had to make it at a younger age. And some people have to make it at a later age, later in life. But I had to make it that choice of going, do I go that route, which is an underprivileged child that's just going to be one of them lot, that's going to be conditioned and put into that classroom over there because he can't write properly and he's got a triangle around his pencil that he can't hold the pencil properly. He's one of them lot. He's thick. He's got to go over there. Or you go that route, you go, well, you know, you lot over there, I'm going to prove every single one of you wrong, that I will be somebody, and I will do, and I'm not saying somebody now, by the way, because I'm very humble. I'm just a person that wants to help people, that wants to create legacy for my children and for other children in years to come. Yeah. So you have a choice to make, and I had to make that at a younger age, and I saw everybody, a lot of my friends go that way, who I'm not involved in anymore. Some are very wrong people, and some are, and the friends that have gone this way, that I make new friends, like people on here, for example, then you want to surround yourself with the people. And I think that what made me make that decision, I just want to win. Yeah. I just want to win. I just want to help people, and I want the best thing. And I suppose the benefit to it, what kept driving me forward, is having lifestyle changes every 3 to 5 years. So, for example, when I was 17, I met my wife, who I'm with now. Yeah, for example. Then we buy another property, another drive, another goal, another picture. Yeah, because I work by pictures and imageries. Then I go, okay, well, when I have my first child, where do we want to live? How do we want things to be, and how do we move forward? Then I have a second child, then I have a third child, and et cetera, et cetera. And I've got to have a picture in front of me to drive forward.
Yeah. No, it's amazing story. Thanks for sharing that, mate. And it's, you know, it's probably as difficult for you as it's been for Jim and Andy. Stephen, can I just ask you, again, going back to the fact that we've done a few training sessions together, you always tell the story of, well, not always, but quite often tell the story of how when you first started in agency, it took you about 9 months before you got your first deal, which means I'd just like to put it out there now that you would not have lasted at Lawrence Rand. All right, but
and the difference is, Steve, he would have lasted. He would have lasted because he would have.
I'm joking. Tell me, back then, obviously you were a lot younger then. You know.
So I was.
How did you keep positive? That's more, because I think a big thing out there with all of the people that are going to watch this, or will eventually watch it via the sharing on social media. How do you stay positive when you're in a position of having lost your job, worrying about your family, that sort of thing? How do you stay positive? What do you do to stay positive?
Okay, so my inspiration was my dad. So my dad was in hospital for the first 21 years of my life. My second home was Hammersmith Hospital. So when I was 21, on my birthday, got taken into hospital. We were on first name terms with the doctors and nurses. We went in on the day after my 21st birthday. The doctors and nurses were in tears. I said, "What's the matter?" And they said, "Go and say goodbye to your dad because he's not going to be here tomorrow." The next day, he started a new business. Okay, 2 years later, he went back into hospital, and sadly, he passed and never came out after 2 months. But he never moaned about what he went through. And he just had the most challenging life, that he provided for his wife, his family, his kids, and he was my inspiration. So what he taught me is just enjoy every day, okay? Because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, okay? You know, Pete talks a lot about when you said earlier, you can't control. So you can control. I can control my mind. How I can control how I feel. I can't control the COVID virus. I can't control anything like that. But what works for me now is I write a journal every day. Okay? And I write every morning 3 things what I'm grateful for. And I'm going to write, and I end it. Today's going to be a terrific day, and today's going to be a fantastic day. Now, actually, I'm going through loads of shit at the moment. And people don't know what people are suffering. and a lot of people suffer in silence. And despite the shit I'm going through, for me, it's really important mind-wise to stay positive. So, you know, my day is getting up in the morning, doing 10 press-ups, writing down the gratitude, and then I do 10,000 steps before 10 o'clock. And I listen to podcasts, and I feed my mind, and I speak to people, and that's what keeps me going. But the important thing is, you know, every single person on here, every single person out there at one time will suffer. Fact. That's, you know, that's life. And fact, at the end, guess what's going to happen? We're all going to die. You know, that's the one thing that's certain in life. So why not we've been given the opportunity to live an incredible life. Okay, yes, we are going to have ups and downs, but go out and just enjoy it and make the most of every day. Do what you want. You know, Pete's got, you know, as he said, he bought himself a nice car. He's with his family now. Go and make the most of it. You know, just enjoy it. Do one thing a day. Tell your partner that, you know, you love him, you love her. Tell your kids you love them, you love them. Just enjoy it. You know, and it is tough. You know, and Jim, you know, thank you for sharing your story. You know, my son had mental health issues, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand at all. You know, and I learned an awful lot through his experience, and I now understand a lot more. You know, your story and what you were suffering, and you know, there may be at times where actually I would have just, Jim, get on with it. You know, what's the matter with you? But now I see it totally from a different perspective, and I understand, you know, what you've gone through, and to share what you've done and put it out there, I think it's incredible today. And likewise, Andy, obviously, Pete, I know your story. You know, Ian, what's happened with you? It's never nice to be, you know, never nice to be redundant. But if you look at everybody on here, you know, so Andy, what's happened? He's now got a new job. Okay, Jim, you've now got a new job. Ian, you've got a new job. You know, Pete, you've created a really successful business. Steve, you're a Leeds fan, say no more. So, but you know, we've at the end of the day, look, you know, we've all had troubling times and challenging times, but look, you know, I think somebody said at the start, look forward. You know, so you can't control your past, but you can definitely control what you do today, tomorrow, and the next day. And, you know, make the most of it, and surround yourself with people that want to help you and are positive, because they're the ones that are going to pick you up when you need picking up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great words, mate. Thanks very much. Guys, I think taking enough of your time. Pete, did you just want to say something else?
Just believe in yourself. Everybody that's watching this is believe in yourself, because, you know, I know sometimes you sit back and you go through some dark days, and it's hard to believe in yourself when you've hit that rock bottom. And Jim, you've been very blessed by having an amazing wife around you to support you to get where you've got, and your beliefs coming back now. You know, Ian, you know, you've created a fantastic brand. You know, I've seen what you've done already and what you're achieving. It's phenomenal. So congratulations. You know, Stephen, great friend and a great mentor to me. And Steve, you've been amazing through this whole thing. And again, it's all comes down to, you know, being surrounded by the right people, believing in yourself, and you know what, you can achieve anything you want in life. And if you have that philosophy of, you know, there's a guy who's sadly passed away, and I said this on Stephen's video thing the other day, and you know, his name's Ed Mead. Not Ed Mead, Ed Percival. Ed Mead. Ed Percival. Ed Percival. And I'll never forget the day he walked into my business. And this was what, you know, I don't work past 3 o'clock anymore. I just don't, right? You want me, you ring my mobile, if I don't answer you, you're not, my family are more important than anything in life. So Ed come into my office and he said, Pete, look, I remember him walking straight in. He went, Pete, I went, yeah. He went, right, give me your mobile phone. Big guy, give me your mobile phone. He said, what? why? You know, he goes, give me my mobile phone now. And we ended up now, you know, big guy, like a bit like Andy was saying, you know, I'm a big guy, yeah. So now we've got these two big guys standing off in the office going, give me, and I'm going, why do you want my phone? He said, bring your wife. I said, all right, okay, all right, bring wife. So now give me your phone. Just give me your phone. So he took the phone off me. I said, all right, okay. And my wife answered the phone, and obviously my wife would say, hello, babe. She wouldn't swear down the phone at that time. Hello, babe. And he went, it's Ed here. And I said, okay. She went, okay, it's Ed. Well, Pete's working 24 hours a day at the moment. What day during the week do you want to go out for lunch in working hours? I was like, that was just a massive light bulb moment for me. And from there, you know, unfortunately, I only had it for about 2 to 3 years. But from there, it was just like, why am I working my absolute bollocks off? I shouldn't be swearing on this. So I do apologise yet again, Steve.
That's all right. We swear, Pete.
But why am I doing all this? What is the point of me doing all of this? What's the point of me getting ill? Because you guys have all been in this industry. It's very stressful, yeah? It's very stressful. We're dealing with people's big emotions, right? We want to give them amazing services, and we take it on ourselves. I certainly do. If I don't give someone an amazing service, that's my fault. That's my fault. It's no one else's fault. It's my fault. My company hasn't given that service, which is why I expect levels up here, Steve. And you know how I work regarding service and professionalism. But that isn't me being a horrible person. I just want people to be treated as if that's my mum or whether that's my dad, whether they're getting that right advice. That's how I want to be treated. And from that point, when Ed said, what day do you want to come out? I just said, you know what? I'm killing myself and I'm not going to see my children. I'm not going to do all the things that I want to achieve in my life. And, you know, when I look at the models that have come out since then, models like Ian's, for example, you know, that's a very good business model regarding, do you know what? I've got my lifestyle. I want my life. I still want my family. I want the good times. But I also want to have a bit of fun doing it. You know, I don't have to turn up in shirts and ties and all that sort of stuff. I want to have a bit of fun and have a bit of laugh with that aspect of things. And, you know, I've known Ian from Prospect days, and I've gone into Prospect when he was there, so I've known him for a little while. But when you see the models switched over, you're still doing the same job. You're just being human. You're just being real. Stop being fake. Right? And then, do you know what happens? Is that people then gravitate to you. People end up liking you because, you know what, he's not the arsehole down the road that's going to lie to me like all the other agents are. I trust him. And we go back to Peter Knight's CA Masters, when the right move reports that they do, it was 58% of people instruct people they trust. Right? So your job then becomes easier. And once your job becomes easier, you love what you do. When you love what you do, you know what? Life's easier. And then in my model, in my head, I can achieve anything I want to achieve in 5 years.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
If I want something in 5 years, I'll draw it on the wall. I'll write it on the wall. That picture will stay up there. And do you know what? I want to achieve it in 4 years and not 5 years. So just believe in yourself, guys. And I ranted on a little bit there, so I do apologise. But
all right, mate. No, but I think
I'm sitting in the car with aircon on. I'm freezing cold. You've kept me on this call for an hour.
And then
it's supposed to be an holiday.
Always morning. I'm going to let you go in 1 quick minute. Ian, just a quick sentence or two just to finish off, mate. What would your advice be to people?
Yeah, there's something that there's a couple of lines that I always kind of think about, which relates to so much of what everyone said, which was do today what others won't, so you can do tomorrow what others can't. And that's kind of how I live my life, basically. So just think about the problems, take them head on, deal with them in the right direction, and come out a bit better.
Wonderful. Thank you, mate. Jim?
For me, it's if you're going through redundancy, then take time to reflect, find yourself, and take time to recover. Find your purpose, do it for others before you do it for yourself. And then the third thing is just do something every day that gets you nearer to where you want to be.
Great stuff. Thank you. Andy, you're muted, mate. Before you start speaking, just come off mute. Not learned to work that computer yet.
No, sorry, my computer's crashed, so I've come on my phone. So that's why I've blipped out for a minute. So, words, I would just say, don't ever believe you're not as good as you think you are. Don't let anybody suck that life out of you. And make connections, speak to people. Do not be afraid to be who you are, and nobody will think anything less of you. If anybody wants to pick up the phone to me and have a chat with me, I've seen it, I've done it, I've got the t-shirt, and I don't judge. I will talk to you as a person, which is what we all are, what we've all had to speak to people about in the past, and what we've all had to endure ourselves, is just be yourself. And I think, as the guys have said, you know, there's no point trying to gloss over what you are. You are what you are. And if you've been in the industry as long as us guys have, you know what you're talking about. You know what you're doing. No matter what industry you're in, you obviously know what you're doing. And just because somebody can't see that doesn't mean you're not as good as you know you are.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and I think from my point of view, I would just say one thing. Remember, it's a glitch. You know, you've heard obviously some real heartfelt stories here today, and I take my hat off to everyone, all the 5 guys that have joined me today. I think it's been absolutely phenomenal, and I thank you very, very much. And, you know, if you look at them, just look what can be achieved. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say, you know, the very best of luck to anyone out there who's struggling at the moment and who needs a job. You can keep in touch with any of us. We're all on LinkedIn. We're all easy to find. You know, if you want to have a chat with us, then please do so. But from my point of view, stay positive, keep the right attitude. Attitude is everything in my eyes. Good luck for the future, and let's look back in the future. Let's look back on this as a period in your life when it was a huge achievement getting from here to here. And I don't think really I can say any more than that. Guys, thank you so very much for joining us today. From all of us,
thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. All the best.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.